and welcome to the Women Making an Impact series. I'm Savita, life and business coach, and I primarily work with entrepreneurs. And in this series, what we are doing is interviewing inspiring women. A lot of these women are people that I look up to, people who are doing amazing work that I aspire to do, and who inspire me every single day. And my today's guest is someone very special, someone who I've actually we planned this a while ago, and after having done so many interviews is someone that I'm actually very excited while also being nervous, and that is Miss Neeraja Ganesh. And why I want to take a moment to actually share why I have been following her journey for a while. And I keep thinking, how does someone do so much, right? Do so much work. I keep thinking I do a lot, and every single time I see the journey of some of these women, and especially my guest today, I think I'm not doing enough. With that, a quick intro before I bring her on to share her story. In her own words, is she comes with 25 years of work experience in the IT world, but she's a thought leader. She's worked with industry leaders. She's a coach. She has worked in the space of diversity and inclusion. There's so much contribution in so many fields that I want to actually take it straight back to you, ma'am, and have you share with us your story. And I want to begin by thanking you for making time to be here today. So thank you for being here today and speaking to me on this.
My pleasure. I'm honored to be a guest on this show.
Oh, it's my honor, ma'am. So tell me a little bit about, you do so much, but what brought you to the work that you do today? What's your story? What's your journey so far?
Sure. And, I would always start such a question with my personal, journey also, and then we can look at the professional side. So personally, I grew up as an only child in a very conservative, Tam Bram setup, Tamil Brahmin family in the south of India, and was an extremely meek, timid, shy girl, kept to myself. And of course, my parents sent me to the best of schools and colleges, but I was to myself. I didn't really have, uh, because of the meekness, because of the shyness, because of probably not feeling, that I fitted in. I kind of kept to myself. So that's the way I have grown up in my personal, life. And of course, as the time goes by, I went through an arranged marriage. My parents found this groom for me very much from Bangalore. He runs his own business. I lived in a joint family. So, of course, I lived with my in laws. My parents were also in the same city in Bangalore, which was a huge support system for me, which enabled me. So one of the takeaways for audiences have to be build your support system. Some of us are blessed to have it, as parents and as in-laws around us, but some of us will have to find that support system. And that's what kind of, helps me even till date to do what I do.
Okay, cool.
And of course, with marriage, I also had my daughter. She's 19 years old. She's doing her first year undergrad here in Bangalore. And today I live with my mother-in-law and my mother, happy family together. So that's my personal life.
Lovely.
In terms of professional, I went on to do my BSc and then did a course from NIT. And I'm talking about the 1990s, so I'm quite old.
Right.
And that was the a time when the IT industry was booming. So I did a course it was called Advanced Diploma in Systems Management. And even before I finished the course, I got this job at Sonata. It was a contract assignment, which converted into permanent employment in 9 months. So I have had 25 years of an IT career that way, grown from the lower rungs of, actually being a software engineer or programmer to actually holding leadership positions.
Right.
And quit from the corporate world in 2017. And that's kind of, a quick intro about my personal and professional. And we'll talk about what I do now, a little bit more as the talk progresses.
Sure. Actually, the topic for people who are watching this today is storytelling to build your personal brand. And as you can see, Neerja is a master storyteller. But coming to the topic of building your personal brand, today people feel that today personal branding is important, and a lot of people do understand that, but often the question is, how can one build their brand with authenticity? their personal brand with authenticity?
So yeah, so as I said, I quit from my corporate career in 2017
Mhm.
and decided to do something on my own
Okay.
because didn't want to get back to corporate
Right.
for a few reasons that I had.
Yeah.
But before I could even do something on my own, this opportunity to head the Jobs for Her Foundation came my way. So I have always, helped out Jobs for Her. I know Neha Bagaria, the founder of Jobs for Her. Even when I was at my Capgemini, my corporate career, I used to mentor and volunteer for them. And that's when she started a not-for-profit foundation. And she kind of approached me, and I said, "This is an area of, interest, a passion that I have to kind of help women, reach their aspirations." So I took on that opportunity, and I, of course, did that role for 18 months, a hugely satisfying role.
Mm.
So let me narrate the story of when I quit from the foundation. I decided that I must launch some of my own trainings and workshops.
Right.
So I put out a webinar on this topic of networking, and I put it out on social media for registrations. I had 96 people who registered. And guess what? All were women. Not a single man registered. So I
Mm.
went back to the poster, which I had put out for promotion, to say, "Hey, did I say this is for women?" And it didn't say anything like that. It just said, "Register for a session with Neeraja on networking for results." And that is when I realized that there has been a brand that has got built, rightly or wrongly, to say that Neeraja does sessions and talks only for women.
Okay.
And that is where the authenticity comes. Of course, that's not the brand that I wished for, because I'm happy to talk to men also.
Right.
And in the last 1 year, I have also been in the academia. So I also look at young adults and do a lot of sessions for them. But what was happening when I was heading the Jobs for Her Foundation was I was always promoting sessions for women. So while it would go as promotional content from Jobs for Her Foundation, I would also personally write about it.
Okay.
And without me realizing, the brand has so authentically built that Nirja does sessions for women. And that's where the authenticity comes in.
Right.
Now, let me give you another example around it. Just 2-3 days back, I saw something on LinkedIn pop up. This is from an organization called as Kalanika.
Okay.
They are, an Indian apparel house who look at handlooms and kind of create and weave handloom saris. So, in celebration of Women's Day, they decided to put out a post every day for 21 days, putting out a picture of a woman who's always in a sari,
Okay.
rocking in a sari or something of that sort. And I was surprised because they didn't approach me or anything like that.
Right.
My picture came up and, said woman number one rocking in, one number four rocking in a sari.
Okay.
And I thought that I have been very true to what I believe I want to wear. While
Mm.
personal brand is not about what you wear and how you look, but there is one aspect of that. And let me tell you, throughout my corporate career, I have always been in saris, despite the fact that my appointment letter with one of the organizations had said that every Wednesday you have to wear a Western formal.
Okay.
And there was, one occasion when I got selected for a senior women's leadership development program held in Paris.
Mhm.
And the dress code was Western formals. And not a single Wednesday I wore Western formals. And even to this program, I declined it. And I said, I will wear what I'm comfortable with. So be true to yourselves.
Mm.
Who are you? And what is it that you wish to be known for?
Right.
And build that brand. And that is how authentic brands are built.
Awesome. Oh my God. That gives me goosebumps because, when we talk about personal branding, even in the work that I do, these are the ways that I would love to tell a story rather than saying, hey, you should do one, two, three, four things, right? So thank you for sharing that. I actually wanted to ask you this question before we came into the conversation on personal brand, but I think it's right to ask now. What are some of the key challenges that you have faced and how did you overcome it? Because we are already on that conversation, and I feel like you must have had some really interesting challenges.
Yeah, so there are plenty, right? All of us go through plenty of challenges, and most of the time we talk about challenges which are external to us. So we say, okay, fine, as a woman, I'm the only person in the room,
Yeah,
across the table, at the board, or whatever.
yeah,
There are many external challenges, and I do not want to talk about them today because there are ways that you can deal and cope with those challenges.
mm,
But the biggest challenge is what comes from within. It is your mindset and your self-limiting beliefs,
Right.
which is what, and we're talking a lot about women today. And hence, I think for a woman, there is a lot of self-limiting beliefs which kind of hold her back.
Right.
One of the classic ones is what we call as the imposter syndrome. So even now, you're sitting over here, and Savita, you've done so many, talks and interviews, and you have reached a position for yourself. Despite that, you are very candidly telling the audience that you are feeling a little nervous, right? So the imposter within you is still telling you, hey, I hope I'm doing the right thing. Do you think it's not telling me? Of course, Savita, it is telling me also the same thing to say, Neeraja, I hope, you are the right person to be on this show,
Right.
because the stalwarts that Savita has interviewed in the past and will go on to interview next, do you even fit in? Are you at that caliber? The imposter will always try to put you down, and especially for women. It's there for men also. So I will ask this question to men: don't you have the imposter syndrome? And they say, of course, but they are able to kind of figure a way around it. But for women, we kind of take a step back, and that's the biggest challenge, of course, for me, and like me, for many other women. So
Right.
what I have done is I've tried to befriend the imposter.
Okay.
I've tried to quieten it down. So you cannot throw it away. That is something. Don't even try to throw it away. It will always come back.
Right.
But just try to quieten it down and say, what's the worst that can happen?
Hmm.
Right? So in this interview, maybe I'll goof up, but that's the worst, right? And we are recording it, maybe we'll re-record it. So
Yeah.
that gives me some, solace to say, okay, even if I goof up, we can re-record it.
Yeah.
So ask the question, what's the worst that can happen? And if you can deal and cope with that, go ahead. So I think that's one of the biggest challenges that I have been able to, overcome by saying, I will go ahead and do and grab every opportunity that comes my way.
Okay, awesome. When we are talking about challenges and imposter syndrome, another common thing that comes up for women, right, is the perfectionist syndrome, right, where they feel like it's all or nothing. If it's not like, you can wake up and have 10 things. Like, I feel like women do this a lot more than men, but we put 10 things on the to-do list. I did 8, I didn't do 2, but I feel like, oh, I feel dissatisfied. I don't feel happy about the 8 that I've done, but I feel like, oh, I didn't do 2, so I've not had a great, like, it's not been a productive day. What is your advice to those who go through that? Because there are a lot of people who go through that.
That's true. That's true. Let me tell you that we have a long marathon ahead of us. All of us, whatever age you are at, it doesn't matter. So
Mm,
you don't have to be in a rush to accomplish everything overnight.
right.
Okay, enjoy it. That's the most important aspect. So when you ask me, how do you do so many things that you do? It's because I enjoy every one of it.
Mm,
And because I enjoy every one of it, I'm able to find time and do it very effectively and efficiently and productively. So, I'm able to do more. But if you're actually in a rush, you want to do everything overnight, it will pressurize you, it will stress you out, and you will not do even one well. So that's one of the things, right? The second thing is that space it out, have some buffer in between everything.
mm,
So even if you have a timeline, I said you don't have to do everything overnight, but you kind of have a week to do 4 things. You want to achieve 4 things in a week.
mm,
Ensure that you calendarize it and ensure that you have buffers. What do? We kind of forget the small little items that may come in during the week,
right.
and then when that comes in, and if it becomes bigger than what we envisaged it to be, then out of the 4 only 3 things get done, and
Right.
then we always worry about it. So for me, and I've lived by the Google Calendar ever since I got into the freelancing world,
Okay.
because I do so many things. There's a lot that I do in terms of voluntary work. I write, and I, do consulting assignments, and I do freelance work, and then I may be giving interviews like that. And then there's personal stuff, right? So every small thing goes into my calendar, including a dentist appointment that my daughter will have. And
Right.
she laughs her head off to say, why do you even put that? But I know that I have to put it because I wish to go with her. I want to be there, to take her to the doctor. And so there is a half an hour appointment and half an hour before and after when I can't really do something productive.
Right.
So I will always decline. For example, why is it that we took so long to have this conversation? You reached out, I think, in beginning of
Yes.
Jan, and I ensured that I'm able to give this quality time. And at the same time, I don't rush everything.
Right.
And so I gave you a date which would be comfortable for me, along with the 100 other things that I wish to do. Not
Right.
to say that it was not priority. If, for example, I know that I have really cramped a lot in my calendar for the next 2 weeks, given it's Women's Day. And I know this opportunity will not come again till the next Women's Day. So people who are approaching explicitly for Women's Day, then I am cramming it a bit. I'm not denying it. But if opportunities can stretch a little, then, try to space it out. And so 2 things to remember. It is a marathon. Take your time and do it at your pace, not at the pace that everybody else is doing, because that's their life and they have their own circumstances to deal with. So you figure out what all you want to package into your life. And it's a holistic life. Don't think of it as career alone. A life has got many other elements than, work and career and money. So package everything into your calendar and have some buffer for some exigencies, and you will be able to, deliver on everything. And even if one slips by, it's okay. It's okay. You have the next week and the next month to work on that.
Amazing. Oh my God, such great advice in that, which brings me to now storytelling. So when we talk about storytelling to build your brand, right, people find that really hard to do. Like, what story do I tell? Like, isn't that fake? Or I don't have great stories. So what are your tips for telling, how to use storytelling, one, for your brand? And what are some tips to tell a story effectively?
Sure. So I remember back then in my corporate days when I used to hire, right? And we were given tips and tricks in terms of how do you conduct interviews. And we were told that you must use this form of interview, which is called BEI, Behavioral Event Interviewing, which means that you don't ask a question, which kind of brings out just some adjectives. So I'm a great person, I'm a great coder, or not that way. You are going to ask a question in such a format and expect a response in such a format that they are actually identifying experiences from their past, work or projects, which will tell you how good a problem solver he or she is. So it's behavioral event interviewing, and it's nothing but storytelling at the end of the day, right? How effective it will be when I narrate a story, but it has to be very contextual. You can't be, randomly saying something just because you want to brag about something. You find the right context, and in this situation that you are, in the opportunity that is presenting to you, what might be a relevant story from your life. So I'll give you 2 examples again. One is that I had this opportunity to introduce Miss Apurva Purohit. I'm a fan of her. Apurva Purohit is the president of the Jagran Group and has written 2 great books. One of them is Lady, You Are the Boss. And we had invited her through BCIC, one of the networks that I'm part of, to address our member organizations and women from our member organizations. So I was given the job of introducing her.
Okay.
A very small job. It's the CV will come or the bio will come. You have to read it word to word. You can't, really tamper with that. People like, of course, stature. That was my responsibility. You know what I did? I used that occasion to talk about a chapter that she's written in her book, which is Impostor Syndrome. And I brought out a story from my life where I had the imposter syndrome, telling me I was asked to become the jury member at Massachusetts Institute of Technology's Global Innovation Challenge. And the imposter was telling me, Neeraja, who are you to, actually be on the jury of MIT's thing? So I narrated that story in the context of Miss Apurva Purohit, introducing her, introducing the book, a chapter from her book, but I sneaked in my story. So it was so very relevant to the occasion. But what also happened was I sneaked in my brand of being at the jury of MIT. Right? Nobody would have thought she is bragging. Nobody would have thought it is so out of context. It gelled very well with the situation, but also left the audience with something about me. So you have to have a bag of stories. It doesn't come, overnight. You have to always keep reflecting upon it and keep the bag of stories ready with you for any situation. Of course, if you have the opportunity to prepare, then ensure that you know which are the stories you're going to narrate. But if you're thrown in, some event, informal, formal, personal, professional kind of an event, find the context, the topic that is getting discussed, and sneak in a story, which will ensure the brand is felt.
Right.
Also, the second one that I want to talk about, somewhere you said about, people who may not have this, people think that I've not done much. So what is a story that I can, narrate? Let me tell you, each of us has done enough. In the lifetime that we have led, all of our experiences are valuable for somebody or the other. So
Mm.
don't ever underestimate, don't minimalize your achievements. Don't think I'm a nobody. Each of us is a somebody, and our life experiences are extremely valuable. So if I were to narrate a story of my daughter, and she's a 19-year-old college going girl, what's the big deal about it? But I will narrate a story which will be that when she was doing her final semester exam,
Mm.
this year has been online, right? So in the online exam, the child is not allowed to have anything else on her screen other than a tool. It was an AI enabled tool which
Okay.
monitors what the student is doing,
Mm.
so that there is no malpractice or anything
Yeah.
like that. And there's a proctor behind the tool who's also still watching the student.
Okay.
So she wrote, and then she had to scan the paper using her phone and send it via email into the email which can be opened on the laptop. And it's a college email. That's the only thing that you can open on that laptop.
Okay.
So she wasn't able to send it through. She tried and tried and tried. 5 questions, 5 answers. She kept trying. It was not going through.
Mm.
What did she do? Any other person would have cried, would have said, okay, lost the paper,
Yeah.
I will do a re-exam and all of that. This girl, she told that proctor, saying that, see, it's not going through. I'm going to open my WhatsApp
Mm.
on the screen. You can watch what I'm doing. I know it's not allowed, but then I have to ensure my answers go. So
Mm.
I'm going to open WhatsApp. You keep looking at what I'm doing on the WhatsApp. All I'm going to do is I'm going to send these 5 answers through WhatsApp. I will open WhatsApp on the screen and push it into the system through that.
Mm.
And if this is a story that I narrate or she narrates of a student, you don't think a student has, great achievements.
Mm.
It is going to talk about how her problem solving skills are. It is
Right.
going to talk about how her negotiation skills are, right? Some of the life skills that she possesses. So it will be
Yeah.
great at an interview. And if I were to give this as an example of a story, it's also building a brand about.
Yes.
So keep a very, very contextual story, present it in a very natural format, as long as it kind of gels with the required, topic for discussion, any story is worthwhile.
Okay. Awesome. Thank you. Also, presence of mind for your daughter's story.
Right?
It's a great
There are
example.
so many brand attributes that are coming about that
Right.
person, right?
Yeah. Perfect. So, should somebody prepare a little bit because okay, I'm building my personal brand. I've now listened to so many stalwarts including Neeraja Ganesh sharing that use storytelling. Should I prepare a little bit because maybe if I'm put in front of somebody I may not be able to think. Do you recommend taking some time thinking through these stories and putting them down, and maybe say if this story, this is what can be the takeaway?
Definitely one needs to prepare. I'm not saying that it comes,
Yeah.
overnight. One needs to. So in my case, I think one of the things is because I have been an extremely introverted person, right? I have always been in an observation mode. So I
Mm.
have observed a lot and I learned a lot. And I have always wanted to be on stage, I guess, but I was shy and I didn't have the confidence. So in my own head, I would probably be in a speech thinking that okay, tomorrow there might be an opportunity where I'll get to the stage and I may be asked to speak about this. So in my head I would have thought of the speech, I would have thought of the stories. So when such an opportunity did come by at a later point in time, it was easy for me. But you must prepare. Always you must have, how do you introduce yourself? That's a basic thing, right? So have a story around that. The
Yeah.
elevator pitch is so important. And think of 3 different occasions, 3 different places, 3 different people that you may want to introduce yourselves to and learn that storytelling. So it is practice. Keeping a list of stories and practicing is
Okay.
definitely important. And over a period of time, it will become a natural, for sure. It will be.
Right. Brilliant takeaway. 3 different places, 3 different types of introduction. This is so important because, yes, everybody, if you tell them, okay, Indigo, tell me about yourself, which is the most hated question, whether in an interview or in business, is they restart by saying, hi, I'm Savita, myself Savita, or, it begins like that. So that's such great advice. So I do have a question. I know you touched upon this a little earlier. And actually, when I was thinking of the questions, I thought about this for myself because I've been asked this in the past. And sometimes I have felt this about me. In storytelling, we talk about the hero or the heroine's journey where we've had these ups and then you build. What if we've genuinely had an uneven, like it's been fine. You had a good life, you had a good upbringing, you went to good school, no, nothing stands out. Um, how do I find a story to tell when and this I'm talking specifically in comparison to, I have someone else around me or my peers around me who are saying, oh, this happened and something really drastic happened to them and how they overcame it, they were the black sheep. So they have those stories, and here I have like nothing that stands out, a very boring average story. What is your response to someone like that? How do they find something from their own lives that they can use in building their own personal brand?
So, like I actually told about my daughter Sneha's story, right? I mean, that's also a normal life. So all of us will have normal lives, thankfully, but there will be, something on a day-to-day basis, which is like an aha moment for us. Uh, however small, you feel, wow, this is so great for me. And you kind of have to, keep that in your kitty.
Right.
I know that, you can always reflect. Now, nobody will have the time to sit down and reflect on your life that has gone by. But maybe you can reflect on the day that has gone by and compare it to yesterday or compare it with somebody else's, day. I don't like comparisons, but just to kind of get it started, compare with your own life as of yesterday or as of 3 days ago, 1 week ago, 6 months ago. There definitely will be some moments, however small they are, which definitely need to be packaged well and told to people and, kept it, in the bag of stories. So for me, for example, I always, talk about 25 years of corporate, pretty much a standard, life that someone would lead in the corporate. I've, of course, grown to these very senior ranks. Uh, and if I were to reflect, I'll find some stories out of it. But the transition that I did, um, how did that happen?
Right.
Was as simple as going to an event on a Saturday, which was held in the Bangalore, one of the five-star hotels. It was an event for women on a career break. Okay, I was not on a break. I was not intending to take a career break. But since I got invited, I went to that event.
Yeah.
And that was transformational for me because when I started listening to the speakers, I had never ever heard speakers from such diverse, industries and diverse perspectives because you're always in a cocoon. You are working in a banking setup, you're working in an IT setup, you're only going to events where you have banking and technology.
Right.
Of course, today banking and technology is also evolved, so it's become very interesting. But in those days, it's the same set of people that you meet, the same set of thoughts that keep,
Right.
circling around you.
Right.
And now you're going to this event where people from startups, from, all, kinds of industries have come.
Yeah.
And one of the things that the speakers said was to these women on a career break that if you're always going to look at opportunities in the field that you have been, say, before the break. So I've been in IT and I continue to look at only IT-based opportunities. It is going to be limited. Not saying that you will not get, but it's going to be limited.
Right.
But if you suddenly start looking at opportunities in terms of what are your competencies that you have, what are the strengths that you bring to the table? For me, I'm very good at stakeholder management. That's the strength. I'm very good at communication, and maybe I'm very good at team, management, people management. So these are my strengths.
Right.
And when I look at a job, any job, doesn't matter IT, non-IT, how did I manage an NGO after 25 years of corporate? I had no NGO experience, right? And even when I asked Neha, why did you even give that job to me? She says, I have seen your passion. That is one thing. Because anybody who's passionate will figure a way out to, delivering the outcomes. But she said, in terms of these traits that you bring, because the job involved building partnerships and my stakeholder management, came into play. The job involved, doing newsletters, doing content and putting it out because branding and an NGO, it's a very lean organization. I did everything myself, right? So my communication came into play and the job involved building communities and engaging community members and my team management came into play.
Right.
Suddenly, opportunities kind of just dramatically improve for you.
Yeah.
So that is a story. I was a plain Jane, life was normal. I wouldn't even have, as you said, anything to say. What did you do over the weekend? Sat at home, one washed clothes. Maybe that's the only answer. I'm not the person who'll go catch a movie, play football. Everybody would say that, oh, I had a great time playing football with my son. Or, I went and did something very fancy. And I had no such thing in my life. Home and work. That's about it. But this is also a great story because I went and attended an event. And people may say, so what's the big deal about attending an event? But look at this. This story I can narrate to tell people, start thinking differently about opportunities.
Right.
So there will be such events. There will be such instances. reflect maybe on a daily basis,
Yeah.
and then, put it somewhere either on your head or in a book,
Yeah.
and you can pull it out next time when an opportunity comes.
Absolutely. Such great tips. And that reminds me, how difficult was that decision? Being at the top of your profession in the corporate world, it's tough. A lot of people say it's tough. How difficult was that decision to make that leap? And then you got all these different opportunities. How did that transition happen? And what's your experience of it?
So I always say that decision making is not difficult when you know your priorities.
Mm.
For most of us, it's a very simple statement. And if you were to ask anyone, they'll say, of course, I know my priorities. But if I were to ask people to list it down, Savita,
I'm here. I'm here.
or did I lose you for a minute?
But it's slight, but we can manage. I can edit.
Okay, I'll just continue and you may have to just edit it
Yeah.
out. Yeah, so I was saying that decision making is easy when you have your priorities right set for you.
Yeah.
And people think it is, of course, we know our priorities, but if I were to ask people, list out what your priority number one is, and only one thing at that.
Mm.
Don't tell me two things at priority number one.
Mm.
No, but I want to do this and this, both are my priorities. But I said, between the two, what is priority number one? That needs a lot of thinking. Okay. So when your priorities are very clear, priority number one is this, two is this, three is this, decision making becomes so much more easier. And for me, when I was leaving the corporate world, my priority forever has been family. So, I will always decide based on the opportunities that come my way where I'm able to effectively give time to family. It doesn't mean that I'm going to spend 10 hours with family or 4 hours with family. Given the current situation, there are times when I have needed to spend more time with family and I would have chosen roles which allow me that. There is time when I feel the family can manage themselves and I would have picked something which will drive me for 24 hours every day also. That doesn't matter. But you have to have your priorities very, very clear. At that point in time, my priority was, I was telling you my support system, right? Which is my mother and my mother-in-law, my father-in-law, my husband, came crumbling down. Starting with my mother who underwent a surgery. As she recovered, my husband fell ill. When he recovered, my father-in-law fell ill. Then my father-in-law passed away. The whole support structure came crumbling down. And I knew at this point in time, I need to be in a role which will keep me in Bangalore. But the role which was there in the corporate had a lot of travel. And I chose to quit that and did not want to go back to corporate because such challenges will again come.
Right. Right.
So that's why that decision making was easier, because my priorities were very, very clear.
Correct.
The second reason why it became easier was because I was already involved voluntarily with organizations like Jobs for Her. So I had taken 3 months leave before I actually quit because I was, caring for my mother and their husband and all of them.
Right.
But I did not sit at home even, I did not say, let me take a chilled out break.
Yeah.
Right? Every day I stepped out for 2 hours to volunteer somewhere. I volunteered at Jobs for Her. I volunteered at this startup called Pensar. I volunteered at this place called Ink. So what that does to you is it tells you what you're good at beyond what you can do,
Yes.
what you thought you could do.
Yes.
And it will also present those opportunities. So I knew that, of course, keeping money aside, and you need money and you'll have to find ways to make money. Keeping money aside, I knew how I could be productively utilizing my time, providing value to people by, doing 100 things which I could volunteer and, do. So it was easier to take the decision because I knew I will not feel bored. I knew I will be able to keep my sanity, even if I quit, till I find something, which is also financially rewarding. So these are the two reasons because of which I was able to easily take that decision.
Okay, lovely. Before I actually, as we come to the end of this interview, there are few more questions. One is,
Right.
what's the day in your life look like?
Okay, so I'm not a great disciplined person. I have to admit
I,
that. So
I refuse to believe that.
At least I think in terms of, I'm not an early riser and, I will not do my exercises or something like that. It's not, the day does not start like that. I wake up only by 7-ish. Also 2020 has made us like that because there is no rush to go somewhere or pack a dabba and send the daughter somewhere and things like that. So, and I have a lot of help at home. So as I said, my family supported me throughout my career, and after 2017, I have ensured that I have household help. So there is a cook and there is someone who comes and takes care of the entire household. So that way I'm blessed. And please ensure people that you do build a support structure. It is
Right.
important. So I don't do much at home. It's more, kind of just overseeing things. So I will not tell you that, oh, in the kitchen for 2 hours and, cleaning up and all of that.
Okay.
But I do multitude of things. So I live by my calendar. As I said, I put every small thing into it. So I will in a day have, say, an interview like this. I will be delivering a session somewhere else. I will be writing a blog. I will also be, volunteering and mentoring someone. So what I do is I ensure that I make space for everything in the month, in the week, in the day. And for example, if this interview is to happen today, of course, it gets calendarized on 24. But I ensure that I will have a slot, half an hour, a day prior to this or 2 days prior to this, where I will collect my thoughts to say
Right.
that I'm going to have a chat with Savita. It's around storytelling for personal branding. Let me collect my thoughts.
Okay.
That kind of eases it out for me
Yes.
to ensure that, okay, now what do I talk? Or, just before the 12 o'clock, with the internet also having, ditched me today and I'm on a
Yeah.
4G, then I would have been really, hassled. So I have specifically learned that. So the day in my calendar is, of course, the on-screen presence and, customer calls and what I deliver, in terms of sessions. But there is a lot of prep also that goes into the calendar. So that when I take other meetings and other assignments, I know that, this much of time is not available because it is prep work.
Right.
In fact, I ensure that I have me time.
Okay.
And of course, today my me time is a TV time or Amazon Prime time, but every day there will be 1 hour of TV, and that's sacrosanct. I will not give it up for anybody. And similarly, there has to be a series or a movie that has to happen over the weekend, and I will make that happen. So that's something that I have realized is needed to re-energize yourself. But the other aspect, when somebody says, what do you do for winding down? Because, it's a
Yeah.
busy day.
Yeah.
I say that if you do what you love, you will not need to wind down. You will
Absolutely.
move from one to the other. And if at all you get bored of one, you have another thing to move to. And hence it kind of, keeps you, refreshed.
Right.
And because of course, I had a college job till December, and then I used to do a lot of freelancing, assignments. I used to do a lot of trainings. I would do a lot of, shows like this. I do a lot of writing. I do a voluntary work with a couple of, NGOs. It's enough to kind of, keep you going, energized, and, happy. So that's how, a day is every day is different, but
Yeah.
it's extremely fruitful and satisfying.
Well, I'm still going to be thinking how I'm going to keep up, but that's, I mean, thanks for sharing a behind the scenes look. A mantra that you live by, before I let you go, mantra that you live by. And of course, I have one last question.
What's the worst that can happen?
Yeah,
Every time I'm faced with something, I will ask that question.
absolutely.
And the response to that, if it is something that you can deal with, I will go with it.
Okay.
So, for me, I'm willing to take any kind of a risk, except for when it comes to the risk of life.
Hmm.
So even with my job, what is the worst that can happen? I'll probably lose my job.
Hmm.
I think I have made enough, kind of provisions to ensure that I can have a life for 6 months without, money coming in from the job. I will go take that risk and do that, role, or do that initiative, or have that conversation with the big boss. What's the worst that can happen? He'll throw me out, right? Doesn't matter. I still want to have the conversation because I can manage. That's the mantra that I live by.
Right. That I wouldn't have guessed. I wouldn't have seen you as a bit of a risk taker. But of course, look at your career, look at your life right now. It is a lot of putting yourself out there, which is a risk that all of us fear. And lastly, your advice to, I work with a lot of female entrepreneurs. What is one advice or a couple of pieces of advice that you can share for young female entrepreneurs who are starting out, thinking entrepreneurship is easy, but then realizing, oh my God, like this is a different ball game? What's your advice to them?
I will definitely say, amongst the many things that they will have to do, like one of the things I'll say is be very, very clear about why you're doing it,
Hmm.
right?
Yeah.
Like, people do it for passion. People do it for people do it for, because they want to have this in their kitty, or they want to be called a CEO, or whatever. But be very, very clear about why you're doing this. But that's for another day. I do want to talk about, ensure you build your personal brand. Remember Steve Jobs, his brand went before the brand of Apple. So
Yes.
people would, want to call us Steve Jobs. And then, of course, the Apple followed. So build your own personal brand while you are at building your company's brand is a definite, advice that I will give to people. For example, Neeraja Ganesh doesn't have a company of her own, right? So, but people will reach out to me because I'm Neeraja Ganesh. That's because I have been able to build my own personal brand.
Right.
And in closing, I'll give you the story which happened a couple of days back.
Okay.
So as I said, it's Women's Day time. So I've been reaching out to a lot of people through my networks, online, offline, to see if there can be opportunities for me to do some sessions around Women's Day in their companies. It's been a choppy ride. Some people have said yes, some said no, and all of that. So there was this person who came back and said that we've kind of decided with some other events. So sorry, this time no opportunity. And I said, okay with her. She reached out to me yesterday on LinkedIn, and she said she put out a poster. So since I give these kinds of talks, right, people will make their own creatives and posters to promote these events.
Yeah.
So there was this poster that this organization that I went and spoke to, it's called Bank, a business networking something. And they made a very nice poster with my picture, a few lines of my bio, what I have done, a few of the talks that I have done in the past, and 3 bullets of some awards that I have received.
Hmm.
Okay, she put out this poster and she said, "I didn't know that you were so accomplished." Okay, and then she says, "Sorry, I don't think there's an opportunity in our organization, but I'm going to refer you to somebody else who's looking for." And it's been about 3-4 weeks since I spoke to her. But look at the impact this small poster made, that she is now feeling she missed out probably of bringing me into her organization, but
Yeah.
she does want me to do something and in another organization. So it's so very important to showcase your brand. And today in the online world,
Yeah.
there's plenty available through which you can showcase your brand. So
Right.
don't feel shy. Every small thing needs to be spoken about. Find visual mediums, find blogs to write on various social media. Find small snippets of audio, video that you can put through about yourself. While the company will have its own brand, your personal brand is important. People will reach out to you first for who you are. When I went to Jobs for Her and I started the work with the Jobs for Her Foundation, it was so very new, right? And I was reaching out to all the corporates, and it was a very different kind of a role. In a corporate, I was not selling; I was only delivering, IT projects. Now here, in some ways, I had to sell Jobs for Her Foundation to corporates.
Right.
This company, this man who came to the meeting that I had scheduled, and he said, "You know what? I don't know what Jobs for Her is. I don't know what they can offer. I don't know whether I want to work with Jobs for Her. But I know Neeraja,
Hmm.
and I know she will deliver on what she promises. And
Right.
hence, I'm having this conversation with you. So
Right.
build your brand."
Right. Okay. Great. Awesome. Thank you so much. That was brilliant advice. Nirja, for all the people watching, how can they connect with you? How can they collaborate with you? What's the best way to reach you? I think we missed that part. So, well,
Sorry.
no, no, it's fine. How can people, for all the people watching, what's the best way to connect, collaborate, follow you? Where can they find you and connect with you?
I think LinkedIn is the best. And I'm available as Neeraja Ganesh on LinkedIn. And
Yeah.
whenever you kind of put this out, I'm sure you will tag me so people can find me. And I look at my LinkedIn every other minute, so no message will go unread. I'll definitely respond. And of course, I'm a mentor on the Jobs for Her portal, so you can also follow me there. And people say that, how do I get to know what events you are doing? I usually put out my events on that portal, so you will get to know. And of course, LinkedIn is always a
Yeah.
place where I promote stuff, so they can always reach out and get to know what I'm doing.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
And I do want to say that I'm going to write a book this year, so watch
Oh,
out for that.
okay. I can't wait for it to come out. We should have to share about your book. So thank you so much. I feel like I haven't yet got everything that I wanted to get out of you, but I think this almost an hour has been brilliant. Thank you for your time. And I hope to stay connected and follow you. And all the best to you in everything that you do. And we'll be following your journey as well.
Thank you so much, Savita, and all the best to you and to all your viewers too.
Thank
And of course, we'll remain connected, and there will be some opportunity where we all can come together and maybe
you.
work together.
Absolutely. Thank you, Nita. Bye.
Bye.